50 ways to lose your money. Wow, it's been a rough go. We are heading into week number 3 of the NFL season, week number 4 plus of the college football season. And what can we say with certainty? That's a question we're going to ask ourselves on the program today. Welcome to this edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest. Happy to be with you. NoFilter.net, our various other platforms that carry the show. A very exciting weekend on tap, and it all gets underway tonight with the Thursday night game. And there seems to be a great deal of confusion as to what the outcome of that game is going to be. The Jets taking on the Patriots, Jets at home. This is one of those lines that's kind of meandered a little bit down in favor of the Patriots, as was the case with a couple of other games that we're going to take a look at, which is always, I don't know, is that a red flag? Is that an alarm? You like a game and you're thinking, I'm willing to lay 5 and a hook, and then all of a sudden the line becomes 5 or 4 and a hook, and you're thinking, what do they know that I don't know? Well, what's going on here? So confusion is always a great part of the early perusal of the lines and the various cards in college and pro football. We did kind of faintly give you a winner yesterday. It seemed impossible. Certainty on this one that the Marlins weren't going to beat the Dodgers 2 times in a row. Ohtani going for the 50 and 50. He got a stolen base in the game last night. Very easy victory against Ryan Weathers, who is the son of one of the original Marlins, David Weathers, who was like their 5th starter in year number 1, 1993. Ryan, unfortunately, left-hander, got tagged last night. It was fortunate for us, but it would be hard to make that an official pick, giving out a baseball game that you had an overwhelming favorite, and you had to lay 172 to win 100 on the Dodgers. So not necessarily something that we would have been just espousing all kinds of pride in. But nonetheless, a winner. So maybe it's a good omen to get the week started. If you are betting, BetOnline is a place to go. The most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds are posted while the game is in progress, which sometimes can be very advantageous, and at other times, why don't you take another body blow from Gennady Golovkin? If you're very sharp and you like contests, they have all kinds of great stuff always available all throughout the year. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, and you can indulge in over 150 slot games they make available to you. Head to the website today to get involved in all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. All right, so an early overview of what was going on, and we had a couple of selections come your way yesterday. One involved, and we may as well start here with the Thursday night football game. And I don't know that I have a strong opinion on this game. Our man Troy West yesterday on the program said go ahead and lay 6.5 with the Jets over the Patriots, and that the home turf was going to be a big advantage for them, that Aaron Rodgers seemed to get things in sync. The Jets with a very questionable effort in week number 1, but came back and did manage to rally and win their second game of the season, now sitting in there at 1-1. Jets defense, highly touted before the year. Everybody's talking about what a great defense the Jets have had. I don't know that they've shown that. The vulnerability would be a couple of guys, key players, including C.J. Mosley, questionable for this ball game, which questionable. But when you're looking at the NFL injury report, people, I mean, what's one thing that we can conclusively deduce? That would be that unless a guy is listed as deceased, in all likelihood, he's going to play. Unless you see a death certificate attached to the injury report and they're listed as questionable, probable, whatever, I would say that there's a 95% chance. It's kind of like the conviction rate in federal court. 95% chance in federal court you're going down, P. Diddy, if it goes to trial. Sorry to inform you of that, but never looks good. People believe the government in those spots. And on the injury report, no matter what it says in the National Football League, and we know people have abused this for years, but I'm not sure if the NFL is being diligent about being more accurate on injury reports now that they are immersed in gambling themselves. Hey, FanDuel here, DraftKings, Bet Online. They got them all on the National Football League. And so you would think, since the injury report, I always believed it was kind of comical because coaches would talk about the injury report. The coaches have a pretty good idea who's going to be available to the opposition, you would think, with all the information that's passed along. The injury report was originally developed strictly for gamblers to give you some kind of indication as to who might play and who might not, and who's going to be influential in a game. So it was always kind of a fugazi listing, but the Jets do have some injuries to contend with coming in on the defensive side of the ball. Patriots were supposed to be god-awful this year. This was going to be just a catastrophic year. New coach, Belichick out of there. Mayo comes in, and the talent level just isn't there. It was perceived that they may have had among, if not the worst rosters in all of the National Football League. So what do? They go and blow out all of the survivor pools in week number 1 as they beat the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. That game had two occasions where the Patriots were able to swipe the ball away and get turnovers at the goal line. So that may be a little bit of a misrepresentation of where they were at. And then they lose to Seattle last week in overtime with an impressive effort for a team that is supposed to be just a bunch of NFL bag ladies and rookies and schleppers. And yet they were right there. It took Seattle and the Seahawks to the wire there, lost it in overtime. So they come in at 1-1 tonight. But real conflicting opinions about this game. The Jets and the Patriots tonight. I would be inclined, I think. And I've had to check myself on this a few times because you saw what happened with underdogs last week, 9-5-1. And if all of a sudden you're using a measure of uncertainty by making all of your plays, especially if you're going with the chalk, which usually is a kiss of death anyway, I don't know that you can feel overwhelmingly confident that the Patriots are going to be able to, A, duplicate what they've done or replicate what they've done in the first two games, and B, that maybe the Jets aren't going to get a little bit better off of and use that last win as a springboard as they beat Tennessee, a team that was determined and fueled by self-sabotage and tried to give the game away. I think the Jets will look good in this game, and I don't know that the Patriots can continue to do what they're doing. We shall see. The Patriots are relying mostly on just running the football and pounding it. I think the Jets' defense may be good enough to contend with that. Aaron Rodgers looked like he was inspired a little bit, as strange as he may be. We don't know what planet he's on at any given time at this point. But any guy that could drive around town with Danica Patrick at the wheel, a woman who crashed, there was an over-under in every race that she ran. Danica Patrick, she'd be in the car in a NASCAR race. The over-under was like lap 3. 2 and a hook before she would crash her car. So Rodgers has balls. There's no question. And I think, I don't know that his ego is such that he feels like maybe he has something to establish here. But I'm not sure that he's going to approach this game with the kind of indifference we saw at different times when he was in his latter stages with the Green Bay Packers. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend laying the 6 points with the Jets. Boy, I don't know why I feel like a noose just wrapped around my neck here. But that's a soft opinion. Jets tonight laying the 6 in the Thursday night game. A lot of conflicting information. I was on a handicapping show yesterday with our good friend Scotty M. Has a podcast called Getting the Edge with a couple of sharp handicappers that he has on the show. 2 of them like the Patriots in this game to go ahead and put up another dogfight against an underwhelming Jets team and at least be within a touchdown, cover the 6-point spread. Mysteriously, though, that line has actually gone half a point towards the Patriots' side. It was 6.5 yesterday and now posted at 6 points. So I don't know if that's sharp money or just people taking a shot here because the favorites have been so suspect in the NFL this year. But, so there is some sentiment out there for the Patriots. 6 points would be a lot to lay. Still, not enough to dissuade me. I think the Jets are a touchdown better than the Patriots in this game tonight. There were a couple of other games I wanted to take a look at. And this was another one of those ones. And how does it impact you people when you see the line going in the other direction? Now, if you're at the racetrack and you really love a horse, and the horse is 5-1, and then some cash comes in, maybe 3-4 minutes to post, and it starts to drop down, and you're seeing 4-1, 7-2, and then it drifts back up. It didn't necessarily go cold. That's usually a good indicator that the sharp money has gone in, and you're going to be okay. And in that case, if you're the contrarian, you're saying good. Let it go up to 20-1. I'm okay with that. I always like that when the price is way in excess of what it was when you bet it at post time on a horse that you had a pretty good feeling about. Now, when this happens with a football game, or any sporting event where all of a sudden you see money coming in on the other side, the side that you believe is going to be in complete error and maybe needing a morphine drip after the ball game's over. Does that discourage you, or are you just as happy as you could possibly be and you're thinking, I'll wait till the last minute here and hope this line goes down even lower? because I'm looking at the USC-Michigan game. Michigan with no quarterback. They got this guy named Orgy, who's going to come in and be the starting quarterback. Michigan has played 3 games so far this year. They played a couple of cupcakes, weak schedule. Fresno State, they beat them 30-10 in their opener. Then got shellacked. We all saw that. It was a big primetime or prime midday national game. Texas, who looks great this year, 31-12. They get pounded at the big house, and Texas might have done that eased up throughout the second half. Arkansas State comes back late in the game to make a game of it, and Michigan beats them 28-18. Now, one of the indicators for this game that I'm looking at, it's kind of a wild intangible, is that a good friend of ours we do a show with is a giant Michigan fan. And he's put his tickets up online. Now, he lives in Florida, and he has a very busy schedule from the business he's involved with Texas Roadhouse Restaurants, owns a bunch of those. And he always, has Michigan tickets. He's a season ticket holder, but he can't get out there for this game. So he put them up online. You would think a big house facing USC, a legendary program with a tremendous history. I go all the way back to USC. It was when I was a fledgling newspaper writer out in Southern California, and got to cover USC football on a frequent basis, their home games anyway. And it was nothing but an all-star lineup. They would have the arrangements in the locker room after another crushing defeat of, say, UCLA. And they'd say, hey, Ronnie Lott's over there, Paul McDonald's over there, Charles White's over there. And sitting by the toilet as a fifth consideration, what would be Anthony Munoz. And you're asking yourself, how much fucking talent is on this team? Now, at that time, Southern California, which still to this day is at the most fertile recruiting base that you could possibly have, it was always sort of a mystery to me that USC could fall off the chart like they did, as they pretty much handpicked virtually everybody. I covered some high school football then. Actually saw Ronnie Lott play for Eisenhower High School in Rialto, California, and people were saying, hey, you better watch this kid. And they pretty much had the pick of the litter, so to speak. As although I don't like to mention cats and dogs anymore on the show because it may be in poor taste, especially if you're about to have breakfast and you happen to live in Ohio. But the USC Trojans, it was made in the shade. UCLA got their leftovers, their second flight players. And then the rest of the country would try to dip in there. Texas and other areas would be recruiting Southern California, but they were getting scraps by comparison to what was going to USC. That being said, they were kind of nothing, almost irrelevant for a while. Very, very suspect, and went through a series of different coaching changes. So finally, they bring in Lincoln Riley at great expense, and he's got Caleb Williams. They have a dynamite offense and maybe one of the worst defenses that we've ever seen by a big-time program in college football. I mean, as vulnerable as you could possibly be. This year, Williams goes as the number 1 pick in the draft, but they managed to find a quarterback that fits what they're seeking to do. And then defensively, I'm not sure what happened there. Have you seen a change like this ever? Is Victor Conti listed as the strength and conditioning coach, the old Balco guy? Because the defensive line of USC, they went through a metamorphosis, the likes of which you can't even imagine. I think each guy put on like 50 pounds of solid muscle. And so they are no longer the completely lame unit that they were the last couple of seasons under Lincoln Riley. And they've been a real dominant force so far for the USC Trojans, who beat LSU 27-20. And then in a total, let's go to the bakery game, a cupcake special, Utah State 48-0. I don't know what could be taken away from that shellacking. But what we can see is that the defense is huge compared to what it was before. I'm not implying that everybody's injecting steroids, but you would have to maybe think that it would be difficult for some of these guys to pass a urine test at this point. But that being said, they go to the big house. A bunch of sort of disengaged Michigan fans, possibly, since tickets are no longer at the premium that they usually are for a game there. And USC goes in there and handles a weak quarterback. Imagine, what was it? The resident assistant used to be at the end of the hall. When I was in college, it was like one phone at the end of the hallway. And this is at Syracuse University, and there'd be a resident assistant. Some graduate student was down there, and he was responsible for kind of keeping the peace there and mediating whatever was going on among the students that were living in the dormitory on that floor. And imagine with the one phone, and he calls out back in my day, If a guy said orgy, that would that would ignite everybody falling out of the rooms on Quaaludes, especially when they had the co-ed dormitories. You literally had to step over bodies if that word was even mentioned. But I'm not sure it's going to have the same influence with orgy at quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. And so I'm going to go ahead and this line went from I think 5.5. I may have gone down to 5 in some places. But I'm going to go ahead and lay the 5 points with the USC Trojans going to the big house. I know that leaves you with suspicions that the home field advantage is going to be so enormous, but I don't think it will be in this case, and I don't think it's enough to overcome Michigan's deficiencies on offense. So I'm going to go ahead and lay points with USC in this one. I'm going to call it 5 and a hook. And figure that the fact that you can get it at 5 points in some places only makes it even more advantageous to unload on the USC Trojans in this game. And then on the Sunday slate, and we've been talking about this, and we have familiarity with this because it's taken place in our hometown here of South Florida. The Miami Dolphins going on the road to face the Seattle Seahawks, who have gotten off to a 2-0 start, and they're emboldened by that. Life and death to beat what is supposed to be a weak Patriot team, which we've already discussed in relation to their game with the Jets. And yet, going out to Seattle, this is never a good thing for either direction you're going in. West Coast teams coming east are always very suspect, and teams from the East Coast going west, especially the Miami Dolphins, don't over time have any kind of upside record in those spots. Now, the Dolphins are going to start Skyler Thompson. They've had, since a week ago Thursday, 1 week ago, they've had off. So they're going to have the extra couple of days off to have prepared and prepped their backup quarterback. But the big discussion in the preseason, and this was well documented by a lot of people, local media, especially here in South Florida, that this is the biggest drop-off from starting quarterback to backup quarterback that you could possibly conceive of in the National Football League. Skyler Thompson, I guess a couple of years ago when Tua was having problems with concussions and other injuries, came in and acquitted himself very well for like a game or two. And it's one of those things that happens with NFL fans. Everybody, there's a movement afoot now. You got on the Goodyear blimp. It's flying over the stadium, and it says, "Start Skyler." And people thought this guy really had the capability to be a viable starting quarterback in the National Football League. In fact, after that season, there was some thought that another team might scoop him up and even consider making him the starter. Anybody that was in that situation would have looked like a complete buffoon, like a fool, because since that time, Skyler Thompson has looked like absolute garbage out there. Nothing denigrating to him personally. Seems like a real good character. But, wow, and the lack of faith that the Dolphins coaches, Mike McDonald and McDaniel, rather, in particular, showed in him when he came into the game in relief of Tua in a desperation spot. You're down 3 touchdowns. We talked about this yesterday on the show. You're down 3 touchdowns. Your backup quarterback comes in. You need to score in this spot. You're at the 6-yard line, and there's still 9 minutes and change to go in the third quarter. So it's not like you're completely dead. Maybe you can pull off a miracle here. And perhaps in that ball game, you would have seen the Bills go into the tank a little bit, although they were scoring somewhat at will against what's supposed to be a very good Dolphin defense, much of it sparked by the fact that the offense was so inept that they kept turning the ball over and giving the Bills outrageously advantageous field position. But Skyler Thompson comes into the game. You need to score here. And you have McDaniel, who's this incredible avant-garde genius when it comes to offense from his days of being the run coordinator under Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers, who have, if you watch their blocking schemes and the way they run the football, extremely innovative running game. You're wondering why other coaches can't pick that up and start emulating that or replicating that because it may be a question of personnel, but the concepts are there clearly, and you're looking and you're going, my God, these guys have as sophisticated a running game as you could have. That being said, McDaniel is dealing with a team that is very top-heavy when it comes to the passing game. They had the ideal guy to execute it, or so it seemed, in Tua Tagovailoa, throwing those little 15-yard darts to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the other receivers on the crew. And it was extremely effective. Week 2 last year, the Dolphins put up 70 points on the Denver Broncos. But that's not happening so far this year. And we'll find out if McDaniel can coach a quarterback up who doesn't seem to fit the kind of scheme that they would like to play and take advantage of. And if any indicator, I mean, this was ugly. When he hands the ball off for a run that got stuffed in the middle of the line on 2 consecutive plays, would you not, if you were this big innovator, have said, okay, the last thing they're expecting me to do here is throw the ball into the middle of the field. So why don't I have my guy just drop back and do that? Maybe even line up in the shotgun and put some pressure on and sort of make a statement that we're not afraid to go ahead and have this guy do something. And we're down 3 touchdowns. It's desperation time anyway. We may as well take a shot and hope that he has some success. Instead, hand the ball off stuffed. Hand the ball off stuffed. Impossible pass to complete in the corner in the end zone and then get yourself sacked. The Miami offensive line is not as good as people were anticipating before the season. They signed a lot of name guys, but all of these guys may as well be the geezers at Caesars. So looking at this game, I can't buy Skyler Thompson. And even though Seattle is no juggernaut and hasn't shown that to be the case so far this year offensively with Geno, he's still throwing for a lot of yards. The Dolphins' defense is not as stout as I think people considered before the season started. And the offense they weren't doing shit. 30 points so far this year, and that was with 6 quarters of Tua Tagovailoa and Waddle and Hill and the whole crew against teams that are not necessarily great defensively. A depleted Buffalo defense and Jacksonville, who's off to an 0-2 start. So I can't see it. I can't see Seattle losing this game. I don't see the Dolphins going on the road with Skyler Thompson and winning it. Surprisingly, some money and steam is coming in on the Fins. That line, which I think should be like 6 in a hook, is sitting there now at 4. And I'm thinking that that's a solid play. So we've given you 2 gagging chalk plays here. USC laying 5 in a hook. And the Miami Dolphins going on the road and getting beaten badly by Seattle. Maybe even a 2-touchdown differential, because I don't think that they could score at a Heidi Fleiss pool party, even if they walked in with Charlie Sheen. And maybe an old reference, but you get the picture there. I mean, they couldn't score at one of those freak-offs of P. Diddy's, the Miami Dolphins with Skyler Thompson. Now maybe he'll go, even if he has a great game, I just don't see them putting up enough points in this ballgame to overcome the Seattle Seahawks and the 4-point differential that you have to lay in this spot. So, good luck, everybody. I hope you have some success. We'll have our Degenerate Friday show coming up tomorrow. The professor will join us. We'll have the plays of Mark Lawrence. Those guys are combined 8-4. Troy West last week went 2-1, and we had Scotty M go 2-1. So a 10-5 week for us on the football slate. And once again, we're on the Jets in this game, even though there seems to be many dissenting opinions. Is it about equally divided? I have to check and see where the money's coming in on this one. But the public seems to have now a slight lean towards the Patriots. And yet I think the Jets will win this game maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 21-10 and easily cover the 6 points that you're having to lay out there for tonight's action. All right, good luck, everybody. Thanks for being with us. For the people at NoFilter.net and Ben Online, I'm Jeff Deforrest. Thanks for tuning in to the Greenlight Ventures presentation of Bury Your Bookie.